Why did characters make so many misplays in Battle City? If you've watched my duel analysis series, you've clearly noticed characters make a lot of wacky decisions sometimes and misplay a lot. But why is this? Well, there's a lot of reasons. Characters making genuine mistakes, they play cautiously against unfamiliar opponents, or they simply aren't playing optimally because we're looking at the duels through a modern competitive lens. And of course, the main one, the plot. The plot is always going to dictate who is going to win and lose duels. So duels are going to be structured around that, and people are going to play to whomever is going to win the duel. However, there is one other reason for misplays in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters Battle City tournament. And this is the one I want to focus on today. The anime tries to faithfully adapt the events of the manga, but fails to adapt the rules of the manga. What do I mean by this? When Kaiba launched the Battle City tournament, he introduced a brand new rulebook. Many of these rules are what we use in the TCG today, like requiring tributes for high-level monsters. However, some were unique to the Battle City era. Fusion Sickness, where fusion monsters can't attack the turn they are summoned. Quick Play Everything, any spell card can be activated during the battle phase, and if you set them face down, they act like quick play spells during the opponent's turn. Graveyard Piracy, where the graveyard isn't public knowledge, so you can't always see what the opponent is dumping in there. And Wilder's Grave. Cards sent to the grave go to the controller's grave, not the owner's. And there is a bunch more, which I've already covered in this video right here. Check that out if you want to see the full list of the anime duel rules for Battle City. Based on this, it's clear to see that, okay, so the anime has completely adapted all of the manga Battle City rules, which were known as the Super Expert rules. And you would think that, right? Well, no. In the manga, there is a massive hardware difference that completely changes how the game is played. And that is the fact that duel discs in the manga do not have dedicated spells and trap zones. You know those bits when they put their spells and traps in? They don't exist in the manga. No back row, no field spell slots. Instead, monster, spells, and traps must all share the same 5 zones. To set a spell or trap, you actually place it in face down attack position in one of those 5 zones. This means a duelist can only ever have 5 cards live on the field at one time. On top of that, the manga had some strict limits. You can only set or activate 1 spell and 1 trap per turn. As well, special summoned monsters can't attack the turn they are summoned. The problem is that the anime scripts follow the manga's play-by-play so closely sometimes that it accidentally inherits these limitations, even when the anime's rules should allow for more. So at this point, you're probably saying, oh, so these manga rules are being applied to the anime Battle City? TGS Anime, you've been making fun of all these duelists all these years. Do you owe them an apology? Have I actually been the one making misplays this entire time? No. And the reason why I don't owe the anime an apology is because they do have 5 monster, 5 spell and trap zones, and a field spell zone in the anime, and they're inconsistent with when they're adapting a bit too faithfully to the manga, being like, okay, they can't play any more than 5 cards on the field. And sometimes they just don't care. You can see in the anime, it does try to match what happens in duels in the manga as close as possible. However, it is really inconsistent with when it is secretly influencing characters to play as if they had the manga duel disc, and when it is playing like you would expect them with more modern anime duel discs. So I thought this would be a good opportunity for those that never read the manga and only watch the anime to show some moments where you can see that the manga is influencing the anime, but at the same time, those aren't actually rules of the anime. So let's go through some. The first instance I want to show is the 5 cards max on the field manga rule. It is most likely influencing Strings' plays in his duel against Yami Yugi. In that duel, Strings gets 5 cards on the field simultaneously. Sly for the Sky Dragon, Infinite Cards, Card of Safe Return, Revival Jam, and Jam Defender. This 5-card god combo in the manga, of course, occupies every single zone available. Now, knowing this, we can kind of understand why as soon as Strings got those 5 cards on the field in the anime, he never did anything else. He never played another card. He didn't summon another monster, which he had in his hand to push for game. The reason why? Well, he couldn't do it in the manga, so he couldn't do it here. That is an example of the manga rules being applied to the anime. In Joey and Weevil's duel, Weevil gets 5 cards on the field at the same time. However, he doesn't set any more cards on the field until one of those cards is removed. And then again, later in that same duel, he will only ever get a max of 5 cards on the field at a time. Note that in that same same duel, he gets out like 10 tokens at the same time. It's worth noting that tokens in the anime and the manga don't occupy physical spaces on the board. They're like imaginary monsters kind of thing. You just have to remember they're on the field, but they're not on your monster zones. They don't take up space. So you can have 10 tokens if you really want to in the anime and manga. So with this in mind, when we go back and watch Battle City, should we always consider that they can only have 5 cards on the field at one time? No, because in the duel with Joey and Odeon, Odeon at one point has 5 set trap cards on the field and his field spell live at the same time. Meaning with 6 cards, the manga 5-card limit isn't actually being applied. It's simply influencing duels due to the creators trying to faithfully adapt the manga to the best of their ability. And we can also cover another rule in this duel. You can only set 1 trap card, set 1 spell card, activate 1 spell card per turn rule. It's broken in this one. Anime Odeon of course can set as many trap cards as he wants per turn. In the manga, he also does set 2 traps per turn. However, the only reason he's able to do this is because his Temple of the King's continuous spell is allowing him to. In terms of multiple spells being used in the same turn, we see a bunch of characters break this one as well. In Joey and Kaiba's duel, for example, Joey activates Pot of Greed and then plays Monster Reborn within the same turn. In this case, this is an anime exclusive duel, so it's probably because it's not trying to adapt anything from the manga. They can actually just go to the rules of the actual anime kind of thing. But saying all that, yes, they are still influenced by the manga sometimes, because the most blatant example of only 1 spell per turn is Yugi and Seeker's duel. Seeker is searching as fast as he can to get Exodia. He uses his Graceful Charity, and with it, he gets another copy of Graceful Charity. But he doesn't use it until his next turn. On his next turn after he uses it, he gets Swords of Revealing Light, but then doesn't use that until the turn after, as he keeps hitting the 1 spell card per turn limit from the manga. A funny moment as well in the Joey Seeker duel is Seeker uses a spell card in the anime spell and trap zone at the back of the duel disc. However, then the animators forget about this and Joey uses a spell in the main zone since no spell and trap zones exist on his duel discs for a turn, which goes to show that the manga is always in the backs of the minds of the animators. And another example of the 1 spell per turn manga effect influencing a duel is Joey versus Yugi while he's possessed. Despite having 2 Hitomnas in his hand, he only uses 1 per turn. We also see it in duels like Marek versus Bakura. Marek uses Card of Sanctity and draws a bunch of cards. One of the cards he draws is Pot of Greed. And guess what? He doesn't use Pot of Greed. This is always the most frustrating thing about the anime because there's loads of characters that have Pot of Greed in their hand. They just never use it. This just might be one of those moments, but he doesn't use it on his next turn as well because he uses the Vengeful Bog Spirit spell. That is probably a bad example though, because he never plays Pot of Greed for the rest of the duel. We can also see Bakura being influenced by this manga rule because he set his spell card exchange on the previous turn so that this turn he can activate his Dark Designator spell and then use his set spell, because you can activate a set spell on the same turn as an activated spell in the manga. Which is also something else worth mentioning. Whenever you see characters set cards during their turn, only to then activate them during their next turn, it's because they want to use multiple spells in the same turn, which obviously they couldn't do in the manga unless they did this. The point I'm trying to make is it's a mixed bag. Obviously, the anime is following the anime rules, but you can see when the manga is influencing characters, even though it's not applying those rules to this medium. Also, things become a bit clearer in the anime for things like Ra's instant attack and why it was so special in the anime. Attacking during the opponent's turn is a pretty dope thing for a monster to do, but when you consider that, oh wait a minute, in the manga, special summon monsters had summoning sickness. Not a single special summon monster could attack on the turn they're summoned. The Winged Dragon of Ra is one of the only monsters in the entire game that can attack when special summoned on the turn it's summoned. Its instant attack ability becomes much more impressive. But of course, we know monsters special summoned in the anime can attack the turn they are summoned. That happens all the time. And I've been talking a lot about the hardware of the duel disc being applied to this series, as well as some of the Battle City rules. But there are sometimes just monster effects being applied to anime cards that they had in the manga, which are completely different, yet characters behave weird like they have the manga versions. The biggest example is Yugi versus Bakura. It always seemed insane to me that Bakura summoned his weak monsters into attack, turn after turn, putting himself at a massive risk all just to summon Dark Necrophere. His excuse was, you see, Yugi, if I'd have put my monster in defense, you might not have attacked him, but if I put him into attack, then you'd frothing at the mouth to destroy them all, even though my life points were like this close to losing. That doesn't make any sense. Yugi would still try to destroy these monsters. He's got to get through to your life points. So I don't understand the logic. But the logic makes sense when you consider Dark Necrophere's manga effect. In the manga, Dark Necrophere has the absolutely bonkers summoning condition that in order to summon this card from the player's hand, it has to be special summoned by sacrificing 3 monsters that have been sent to the player's graveyard while in attack position within 5 turns. So okay, that explains why Bakura played so weirdly at the start of that duel, but it's not an excuse. I don't forgive Bakura for this, because nowhere on Dark Necrophere does it state any of these criteria. The same can be said for why Bakura didn't use Destiny Board on his first turn against Marek. Bakura had Destiny Board in his hand on his first turn against Marek Ishtar, but he never set it face down, and I ran the numbers, he would have won if he did this. But the reason why he didn't do it in the anime is because he couldn't do it in the manga. You see, manga Destiny Board requires that Dark Necrophere is in the grave to work. Dark Necrophere is actually the one that's controlling the Ouija board, planktiff? What's it called now? Planchette. I was close, I wasn't too far off, but again, this doesn't excuse Bakura for misplaying so hard in the anime, because you can literally see on anime Destiny Board's Japanese text for all to see. Nowhere on this does it say Dark Necrophere needs to be in the graveyard to use this card, because it doesn't need it in the anime, but in the manga it does. So that's what's influencing him to play a little bit wacky sometimes. These moments were just a few that I was able to find. I would love to know a lot more of moments where you thought, why didn't he win by doing this? Wait a minute, the manga did this and it couldn't do this, so that's why. So if anyone wants to leave any comments for other moments that these kind of things happened, I'd love for a little conversation to happen down there. The point of this video was not to insult the anime at all. It's absolutely fantastic. All it is just the people that choreographed the anime trying to go as close as possible to what was happening in the manga. Because if you read the manga and then an anime adaptation happened, you would want it to be as close as possible. But obviously, as the card game developed, as the manga had finished kind of thing, then obviously we've got new cards that do different things. They've got to try and adapt that as much as possible. Sometimes they can, but when real cards exist, you kind of have to match that. So it's no one's fault, really. I don't blame them at all, but it does help explain why people misplay so much in the anime. But again, it is not an excuse. When I tell you you've misplayed, when I find out you've made mistakes and stuff, it is still a thing because we're not in the manga and you have 5 spell and trap zones. So there you go. But other than that, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Catch you later.